Art Index is made possible through the generous contributions of the Richard J. Massey Foundation for Art and Science, and the support of the law offices of Matt Greenbaum and Dorian Bennett Sotheby's International Realty.
Art Index TV's mission is to take you inside the complexity of today's art world, from artist to art, dealer to museum, and educator to administrator. We also examine the business side of the visual arts, which supports local and national economies and is a vital part of our society. Today's show features interviews with Chicago-based visual artist Tony Fitzpatrick, New Orleans-based conceptual artist Dawn Dodo, arts educator at CalArts, and owner of Just Inc., Karen Atkinson. This episode will also feature video by Brooklyn-based artist Rico Gatson. Our first guest is artist Tony Fitzpatrick. His work combines drawing and collage with literary influences such as Studs Terkel and Samuel Beckett. Tony merges the sacred and the profane in such a way that all components become one. Hi Tony, how are you? Good.
Good to see you again.
How long have you been an artist, full time?
I've made a living at it for the last 25 years.
Well, when did you actually quit your day job? Let's put it this way.
I can tell you exactly the day the Bears won the Super Bowl in 1986. The bar I was working at, the phone rang, and it was my dealer in New York. And the Bears were on their way to winning the Super Bowl, and I was tending bar, and she said, are you sitting down? I said, I don't have a lot of time here. You're going to have to get to it. I've got a, bar full of drunken Bears fans, She said, your show just sold out. A filmmaker named Jonathan Demme came and bought the rest of your drawings.
Wow.
And from a little while later, the police broke in and busted the bar because we had a bookie in the back room, and they closed it. So I didn't have a job anyway. And I've never done anything other than make art for a living since.
Wow. Yeah.
And I didn't trust it at first. For the longest time, I had a union card. I did cement finishing before that for a while.
You didn't trust being a full-time artist?
Yeah. I mean,
like how secure you could be.
It was kind of terrifying. I thought, this is a fluke. This was a dumb luck, a one-time thing. So for years, when you're in the union, you had what's called a withdrawal card. And I kept that withdrawal card in my wallet until about 1998, for about 12 more years. Because I thought, this could end at any time. I mean, and I still pretty much think that. I go into my studio each morning with intention and hope like hell I can do it every day. The only way I could do it is 7 days a week and 10 to 12 hours a day.
Well, speaking of your studio, what does your studio environment look like?
It's a storefront on Damon Avenue in Chicago. I'm part of a neighborhood. Just like the girls who wait tables down the street, and the guys who cut hair across the street, and the beat cop. We have one.
So a storefront. You're right in the.
I think right in the business district of Damon Avenue. I think artists are part of the community, and I think when we isolate ourselves from the public, I think we do our craft and the public a disservice. I think we should have a dialogue with the public about what it is that we do and why what we do is also about them.
Can you share with us your process, a little bit about your process?
I work with scraps. I work with the kind of stuff normal people throw out. I'm that drool case walking down the street, picking up, pieces of paper off the street to use in my drawing collages. And, I'm also very ADD, and I like to tell my mother my career means that the ADD and the OCD are paying off. I like scraps because I think they're charged with a history, and giving them kind of a second definition as part of a piece of art, I think seems, it means that it doesn't become garbage. One more thing thrown on the big scrap heap. It becomes part of our record, part of our days.
You use a lot of words in
Yeah.
different forms. You used to put words around the framework of your slate drawings.
Yeah.
You are currently using haiku on the side. There's been words throughout. What is the relationship to the idea of an image and using actual text-based words to almost replace or play with the image? What is the relationship that you see?
I always, at a certain age, when I first started making the drawing collages, I started putting the poems right in the pieces. Because I've written poetry, my whole life, from childhood on. And when I was 19, my first book was published, but I always would think of something and then try to decide, is this going to be a poem or is this going to be a drawing? And then I thought, well, maybe one good goal would be make all those things the same thing, and not so much separate them, and then maybe make pictures of words. And I was always fascinated in the 80s when I saw artists like Barbara Kruger and Jenny Holzer, and I thought I used language to a very different end, but they kind of gave me permission, Leslie Dill years ago made these gorgeous pieces about Emily Dickinson, which were words on these paper dresses that she made. And those works kind of set me free. I thought, there's
no limits.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong. I mean, there are guys out there killing chickens with staple guns, calling it art. I mean, it's like, if I want to put words in my pieces, then so be it.
Well, what is your definition of art?
On any given day, you ask me that, and I will give you a different definition. I think art is something that keeps us beginning. I think art makes humans more human. I think art is how mankind entered the civilized world.
If you could bend someone's ear in Washington and tell them what's happening in art in America, to potentially evoke change in policy, what would that one thing be? It might actually have an effect on
I would tell them that the richest natural resource we have in this country is the creative capital of the artists of this country.
Okay.
I would tell them that it is a language that will succeed when languages of diplomacy and hostility and inequity fail, that the creative language is always understood and is spoken by everyone. Art is the way we build bridges to every culture and every people. The old platitude goes is it's a universal language. It's a universal necessity. When people ask us what separates us from other creatures, it isn't opposable thumbs. It's the instinct to make something from nothing. That's what I would tell Washington. I would say, do us a huge favor and please don't get in the way of art.
And perhaps support it, perhaps move it forward, or...
Exactly. Let artists, maybe when they donate artworks, let them write off the full value of their artwork. I mean, make it easier for artists to apply their trade. Whenever they write history books, what's odd is that you rarely see photographs in them so much. You see pieces of art from each period. And this is how we take the pulse of our culture. This is how we understand what our culture was saying to us. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Oh, thank you so much, Tony,
Thank
for being
you.
with us. I'll see you soon.
Be well.
Rico Gatson's Spirit, Myth, Ritual, and Liberation was created in 2008 for the New Orleans Prospect One Biennial. Gatson examines American history, violence, and race by juxtaposing portions of two films about 1960s counterculture, Sympathy for the Devil and Gimme Shelter.
Never.
That is because our people consciously resisted a language that does not belong to them.
That is because our people consciously resisted a language that does not belong to them.
Never did, never will.
Never did and never will.
No matter how they try to run it down our throat, we ain't gonna have it.
No matter how they try to run it down our throat, we ain't never gonna have it.
We ain't gonna have
We
it.
ain't gonna have
You
it.
must understand that as a level of resistance.
You must understand this is a level of
Anybody can
resistance.
speak that simple whitey's language.
Anybody can speak that simple whitey's language.
Anybody can do it.
Anybody can.
We've not done it because we've resisted.
We have not done it because we have resisted.
Resisted. We
Resisted.
have to recognize who our major enemy is.
We have to recognize who our major enemy is.
Brother,
Our enemy is not our blood brother.
flesh of our flesh and blood
Flesh
of
of
our
our flesh of our flesh and blood of our blood.
blood. Major enemy is whitey.
The major enemy is whitey.
Institutions of racism.
Is institutions of racism.
That's the major enemy.
That's the major
That is
enemy.
the major enemy. And whenever anybody prepares for revolutionary warfare,
And whenever anybody prepares for revolutionary warfare,
concentrate on the major enemy.
we concentrate on the major
We're
enemy.
not strong enough to fight each other and also fight him.
We're not strong enough to fight each other and also fight
We
him.
will not fight each other today.
We will not fight each other
We
together.
don't fight some black men.
This morning, hiring it red. You say, hurry, hurry. The gal you love is dead. Got a letter this morning. Yeah, hiring it red. You say, hurry, hurry. 'Cause the gal you love is dead. Letters grabbed up in a suitcase, took her down the road. When I got there, she's man on a cooling boat. I grabbed up a suitcase and I took out down the road. I said when I got there, she's man on a cooling boat.
Dawn Dido has long been recognized as a forerunner of new media. By bringing her work into the public spaces, she defies traditional gallery and museum settings. Can you give me a brief history of your work as an artist?
Yes. Was actually trained as a painter, and but got very interested in mass communications and conceptual art. And so I started drifting away from painting and doing works that really used, instead of paint, used the mass media of the day, which was the early and mid 70s. Started using that as the material. There's something in me very early on that wanted to engage public and make public art, not so much, you know, the sculptures in the plazas, but real social engagement. So the film, the ether of of mass media, very much intrigued me and shaped early work.
Oh, interesting. So early video and early digital, early as media
Well, actually, even before video, it was just the exchange of communication itself. And one of, I think, the first important projects I did was called CB Radio Booth, where I got a license from the FCC, special channel. I went to AT&T and got some outdoor telephone housing units, gutted them, put in CB radios, and installed these outdoor booths in various locations throughout South Louisiana. Got a control tower at the top of One Shell Square and had people talking. So it was really the precursor to the internet and what we have today with Twitter and Facebook and everybody being able to communicate right away. And that, so it was really going to that absolute base core of communication and bringing people together.
What are some of the external influences that find their way into the body of the works?
I'd like to do art about life and not art about art. So I'm very impacted by my surroundings. And I would say 70% of my work is, does address or is impacted by social issue or social condition. You can see that throughout much of the work. And then there are moments where I have to get off the bus, and instead of going externally into the world, there are times where I need to turn inward, and those are very personal pieces, perhaps less successful or poignant because they are process works for myself. Case in point, Katrina. You have an episode like Katrina, and your world and the world of your neighbors and loved ones and even strangers who you share the land with. This has a profound impact on you, and not only for me, but I notice many artists felt the need to respond to this kind of calamity.
Your last exhibition, Swan Song, was that in fact your final relationship to Katrina? I know it was done in response.
I did call it the Swan Song because I realized I needed a final exorcism. It was within a house that was actually going to be torn down, that had been, to a great extent, destroyed by Katrina. So I did want a final farewell to it. I had a big boat, actually, in the front room, which had been exhibited in 2 other cities, more in a museum context. Here I shoved the boat into the small room, and the boat was filled with architectural remnants of New Orleans, filled with many musical instruments that I pulled off of the streets out of mud. And so it was kind of sending the boat off in the spirit of the Vikings or the Northwest Coast Indians. It's let's put it to rest now, let's send it out. So the specific narrative related to Katrina is finished for me. But what will remain in me forever and has changed me is the deconstruction that Katrina offered. I was just so awestruck by how the world as we know it was abstracted and how all of a sudden abstraction was representational.
When you refer to abstraction, in this case, the normal or the context or the relationship to what a city is, to what structured life is, to how one functions in our society, left us or left you as a New Orleanian. And so in that sense, you were left with the notion of abstraction. Is this?
I always have loved abstraction, but it was a parlor game I could not play in because it didn't help me meet the public the way I wanted to.
I see.
But now, you know, it was the new reality.
If you could bend the ear of someone in Washington and tell them a little bit about art in America today, something that might evoke change in policy, what would that be?
Well, not to abandon ship. I'm glad we still have an NEA. It's very important that the humanities, that the focus and the study and the proliferation and the propagation of the humanities remain intact in this country, and that we're not a country just about the bottom line. I think that the arts offer insight into our higher nature. It's intrinsic to the true education and evolution of a human being, I think.
Karen Atkinson is the founder of Just Inc., which integrates information, software, and services to help artists handle the business end of their practice. Karen is also the founder of Side Street Projects in Los Angeles and is an active artist. Today I'm interviewing Karen Atkinson, and who is an artist, also a author of a book, Get Your Shh Together. It's not a book, in fact, it's an online service for artists.
It's actually
you could speak about
software for artists.
Very good,
To
thank
keep
you.
track of practically everything in their art lives.
Ah, okay. So slides, give us an example of that.
So for instance, it will keep track of all your artwork. It's a database program, and you can import all your artwork, you can import all your exhibitions, you can keep track of all your artist statements, your resumes, and it's got over 300 pages of information for artists, so that if you need certain information on business skills, you can look it up. So things how to get a business license, bartering trading laws so you don't get into trouble. So there's a lot of things in it.
Great. What changes have you seen in the art world, let's say in the past 10 years is a good...
I think the biggest change is that when I started showing work and I got out of graduate school, nobody was showing emerging artists. It was very hard to get a show. Very few women were getting shows, and no people of color.
Right. What's the name of your founding organization, or the organization?
Side Street Projects.
And is
I ran it for 10 years and gave it to the next generation. They have done an amazing job with it. They're now totally mobile. They're off the grid. They run on solar power. They have their offices in trailers. They have everything they need, but they no longer have rent, and they no longer have utilities. And that is actually making a huge difference.
So this is like a mobile exhibition?
It's a mobile arts organization, not just an exhibition. It's totally, and then the exhibitions they do are more site-specific, and they're not in a structured sort of gallery space. They do site-specific projects wherever they happen to land.
How did you experience art in your formative years?
So my own kind of upbringing and getting involved in the art world was kind of through the back door. I started doing things that didn't necessarily fit into the art world. I started doing exhibitions outside of gallery spaces. I wasn't particularly interested in gallery spaces. And so I am a very DIY artist. I have sort of figured out how to raise money on my own, figured out how to do projects on my own.
DIY, do it yourself.
Do it yourself. So basically, I haven't relied on anybody to tell me that it's okay for me to do my work.
How would you define art or contemporary art now?
I think art is what you call it. The whole idea of whether it's art, I don't think is near as interesting as then, whether it's good work.
What advice do you have for artists?
Get smart. I think for artists, there's so many things that can really help their careers. To me, the business skills and the things that you need to know to be an artist, if you know them yourself and you don't rely on other people to do the work for you, is the biggest thing that an artist can learn. So if you know about when you need a business license, if you know that you can barter your artwork to get your teeth fixed, if you know certain aspects of how to go about it, how to fundraise without writing grants. There's tons of information out there for artists, and luckily we have a lot of that information on our website.
Good.
So it's free and open to artists anywhere. So I think artists should be in control of their own careers.
Yeah. So with the spirit of DIY, how does one promote or market or in the contemporary art world?
Well, I think it's the same way that a gallery does. There's no reason why an artist can't send out their own press release. There's no reason why an artist can't get information out with all the sort of social networking things that are going on. There's no reason why an artist can't raise money themselves. They can write grants and get a fiscal receiver. They can do lots of different things. So there's so many options for artists. And I think if they take the initiative and find out these resources, they're going to actually have a much better time, not only getting their career off the ground, but they're also going to be much smarter and won't get manipulated so much.
Right.
Which is I think, a huge issue.
If you could bend the ear of someone in Washington and say something with regard to art in America, what would that be?
You know, we had the Industrial Revolution, we had the Knowledge Revolution. Now the sort of buzz is that creativity is the next really big thing, and it's also going to get us out of trouble.
Or
We've dug
creative-
ourselves a deep hole.
Absolutely.
So I think that the creative
Economy.
mind, the creative economy, not just the economy, but I think
Right.
also that artists have a chance here to really have an impact on culture and not necessarily stay within those sort of ivory towers of the traditional art world. I think that the art world has the chance to explode, and artists have a chance to do almost anything that they want to do and do it themselves.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and that you will remain with us as we continue our exploration of contemporary art. Until next time, keep experiencing the art in your world, and thank you for watching Art Index TV.